Hi everybody, this is TheHande Mäkinen, and here I am rambling again. Last week I made a little rambly video in preparation for the Formula One season that was starting this past weekend. And so in that last video I was hoping to give a little bit of a taste of the race, or of my expectations for the 2018 season. The idea there was to kind of make the video a little bit accessible, at least if you're not completely on board with, or if you don't know much about Formula One, if it's not something that you're into. I don't know how successful I was. A couple of people seem to like that video. Got a couple of likes on it, so I decided. Well, I didn't plan to make a follow-up, but I think I need to make a follow-up because of some of the things I said in the previous ramble video. And this is yet another ramble video. This is not a podcast. I'm not putting this up on download or anything. I just want to quickly sit here, gather my thoughts, tell you what I thought about the first race of the season, and in relation to the things I said, or what I kind of sort of predicted based on last year's season and how the teams did last year. And there were some surprises, some good surprises, some bad surprises. There were a lot of surprises, though. That's what I like to see. I like that. That's what I like about Formula One, when there are surprises and the outcome isn't entirely known to us before the first race of the season. So anyway, if you have not watched the race, if you missed it, I highly recommend, first of all, so I don't spoil anything. I mean, by the time this comes out, probably on either a Wednesday or a Thursday, you will hopefully have watched the race. But I'm sure there is a summary video on the official Formula One YouTube channel. There's even a report of the race on my blog if you're interested. But anyway, if you saw the race, you already know the outcome. So anyway, what was the single most positive thing to take away from the Australian Grand Prix? And all through this thing though, there's one little disclaimer, one little thing. I will probably be repeating this ad nauseum throughout this whole rambly video. We have to remember that this was only the first race. And I think I said this in the previous ramble video, but if I didn't, I'll say it again. This was only the first race of the season. Okay. We have sometimes had fantastically exciting first races to a season, only for the season itself to turn out not as exciting. So, and I wouldn't say like the first race of the season was super exciting. It's always interesting to me. I always come into the first race of the season very refreshed. There's been quite a few, of course the gap between when the last season ended and when the next one starts is getting shorter and shorter, but it's been long enough time since I last watched a Formula One race, because as I talked about in the previous video, the thing that I was really just sick and tired of the 2017 season by the time the 2017 season was ending. So I always come into the new season with a fresh take, and that's why I'm always very wary not to judge too much based on how this first race goes, because things might go completely differently in the next race. But we saw some very positive indications. The race was in Melbourne, Albert Park, classic Formula One venue. I like Albert Park, although in the last couple of years, the races there have not been super exciting. Usually what we see is a lot of technical failures. And actually, that's not a talking point here, but that's actually one thing I have to say. We had surprisingly few mechanical failures this year. And this kind of leads to an overarching this leads to a kind of overarching theme about my thoughts regarding this, that most of the teams came to the first race of the season very well prepared. I was very happy to see this. The pack was tight, is what I'm saying. Everybody brought their A game to Australia. What we see usually in the first race of the season is like half the cars retire because of a technical issue, which will be quickly resolved by some teams and will never get resolved by some other teams. So there were only 3 really technical retirements. We had one Williams car, one Sauber car, one Toro Rosso car that retired from the race because of technical difficulties. There were also a few slight disappointments, but the thing that I noticed was performance-wise, the teams were very, very even. And this was really nice to see because we saw very strong competition there in the middle when a couple of surprise players dropped out of the race. But up on the front was one of the surprises, and this happens very rarely. So I was talking about the top-tier teams, Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes, and they still are. Even after this first race, I'm very convinced that they are going to be the top teams of this season. Red Bull did not wow me. They've gotten off to a good start. At least they didn't have a mechanical failure. Like I said, there were very few technical issues. But they could not catch up to Ferrari and Mercedes. Daniel Ricciardo probably gave it his best shot towards the end. The thing that I was most impressed with was that Ferrari caught up to Mercedes. And I think that's accurate to say. They have caught up to Mercedes. Mercedes has not pushed their car to be faster. And what was even more surprising, we had two Ferraris on the podiums, and one of them was the winner. And that was impressive. That was impressive to see that Lewis Hamilton, after he fell behind Sebastian Vettel, could not overtake him. And in fact, the thing that we saw happen was that he had that one kind of shaky overtake attempt where he went off the circuit a little bit, and that seemed to knock the wind out of his car. That was the surprising thing. Mercedes has an issue. This doesn't happen very often. Now, after I say this, I immediately have to follow this up. Well, they may have a technical issue with the car. It's not probably going to be an issue for very long. Mercedes is a well-funded team. They're the championship-winning team. They have the resources to fix whatever issues they have. So this issue, whatever it is, it's not going to last for very long. So the thing to do here is that Ferrari cannot rest on their laurels. They have to now plan how to get one up on Mercedes next round. But one thing that was interesting, and maybe a little surprising, one of the few disappointments, letdowns, if you will, of the race was Valtteri Bottas, the second Mercedes driver. Well, he had a horrible time because he crashed his car in the qualifying. So he was technically 10th after the qualifying, but then they had to change some parts in his car, so he got a grid penalty, had to start from grid 15, and finished 8th, only 8th. Now, I was expecting him to be 8th, by the middle of the race. The fact that he was not in the top 5 was the thing that disappointed me, and it's was this a fluke? Was Bottas just, because they couldn't obviously test this car, they had to quickly piece it together. So maybe, the settings they can get from the computer, they probably have it written up. But, so maybe this was just a fluke. But I was still a little surprised that with a Mercedes car, even one that was pieced together, Bottas was not able to give a sufficient fight to the middle lotters, the mid-tier teams. So, again, this was only the first race. Bottas was not driving a car that had been tweaked to perfection. Far from it. Furthest thing from it. He was driving a hobbled-together car. So maybe this was a fluke. So, but I'm still genuinely impressed that Ferrari seems to have finally stepped up to the plate, and this is looking very interesting. Also, team that stepped up to the plate, and I feel obligated to apologize for my comments in the previous Ramble video. Haas had a dynamite qualifying, and even more impressively, right up to the middle part of the race, they stayed in the top 5. They stayed, well, I don't remember if they were 5th and, I think they were 5th and 6th for a really long time in the race. And I need to just completely in the previous Ramble video, I just said that I wasn't expecting anything from them, so I need to take that back. Haas surprised me. They surprised me in a good way. And then sadly, they were the other big disappointment. Not the drivers, but the team screwed both of their drivers over. When they went in to change their tires, the front left tires would not get on properly. And we see that you can watch it. It's probably on YouTube. If it's not there, you can see other videos of it. But you can see like the pit crew waving their hands madly when they notice that the bolt or whatever it is that holds the tire to the frame of the car is not connected. And this happened with both cars. This has happened, and Haas doesn't have to feel too bad about this because this has happened to bigger teams. This happened to Williams one year, and Valtteri Bottas was the one who ended up paying the price for that. So, yeah. But that was disappointing to see because I downplayed Haas so much in my Ramble video last time. So I need to apologize for that. They have brought their A game. Lots of teams brought their A game. In fact, the only one that I was really maybe disappointed with was a little bit. I was really expecting Force India to score points in the first race. The fact that they didn't. Sergio Perez was 11th. That surprised me. But like I said, the pack is tight. The teams are very close performance-wise, so there wasn't a lot of overtaking. So that's the thing. That's what I'm impressed with. That's what I'm surprised with. Of course, I want to see Force India do better. The other thing, and like I said, last time I said like I'm not their biggest fan, but I am still genuinely happy that McLaren has made a comeback. Yes, Fernando Alonso was in the top 5. Stoffel Van Dorn. I was actually surprised Stoffel Van Dorn didn't do better than Alonso, but yeah, McLaren has shown the Renault engine works with their car. It works well. I mean, granted, he only got in the top 5 because the Haas car is retired, but Alonso was in the top 10, I think, when they did the qualifying as well. So, or he got up there because of Bottas's grid penalty. Either or. They did a good job. McLaren is back, baby. That's what we're taking away from this. Of course, this could have been a fluke on Haas's part. This could have been a fluke on McLaren's part. Like I said, this is only the first race of the season. So anything can still happen. But McLaren usually improve towards the end of the season. They rarely get worse. I don't remember the last time McLaren got worse as the season goes on. But it's a relief. This is a classic F1 team. Even though I'm not their fan, it's still kind of heartbreaking, like how bad they've had it for the past couple of years. So it's nice to see them succeed. Like I don't like being a negative Nancy. I like seeing teams succeed, regardless of who they are. Sauber, I said it before in the Ramble video. They didn't do so well. Neither did Toro Rosso or Williams, and unfortunately, well, for Sauber, like I said, I wasn't expecting much. And Charles Leclerc admitted as much that the car is pretty dang terrible. Marcus Ericsson had a mechanical problem, so he dropped out, whatever. But Toro Rosso and Williams, they are the teams I'm a little worried about right now. With Toro Rosso, I was already worried on Sunday. Because, yeah, Pierre Gasly, he had to drop out because of a technical problem. But Brendan Hartley was the only driver that got lapped. That's not a good sign. I mean, I don't think of Brendan Hartley as a particularly talented driver, but the fact that he was the only one who got lapped is worrisome for Toro Rosso. Because they're, of course, now driving the Honda engine. And they didn't do so hot in the qualifying. So we didn't see much to elevate Honda's situation in the sport. So that's one thing. And another thing, and this came as a bit of a surprise to me as well. I read today that Lance Stroll has commented that during the race he was really having problems with the car settings. That he was focused more on keeping the car in one piece rather than actually racing. And that's worrisome. Williams usually comes to seasons very well prepared. Like I said, they've had their weak seasons. They've done their goofs in the past, but this is kind of worrisome. Like I did not want, and Sergei Sirotkin, by the way, was retired. He retired because of a technical problem as well. Now again, Williams is a team I think that improves as the season goes on. They've been doing this for a long time, so they have a lot of experience. The thing that many people are worried about, and I was a little worried about it myself, is that they have two really fresh drivers, a second season driver and a rookie season driver. The qualifying didn't go so well for them, but we'll see. This is only the first race of the season. Lance Stroll can do pretty well. Their car wasn't excellent last year. Okay, that's the thing to remember. Like Felipe Massa sometimes scored points, sometimes didn't. Lance Stroll sometimes scored points, sometimes didn't. But he was on his rookie season and he managed to get a podium as well. So it might be that Williams is just having a really rough start to the season, or this could have been a fluke. Like I said, but the things that I needed to address is that number one was the Ferrari Mercedes situation. I'm really happy about that. That it looks like, at least based on one race, we might have an interesting championship race this season. Of course, it could be then that starting from the next race onward, which is in a couple of weeks, that Mercedes is just going to be, winning everything. But at least for now, it looks promising. I have to apologize, and I have to give Haas huge props. I really, really hope that this embarrassing thing that happened in this race, it doesn't get repeated. Like, I hope they take care of that situation because like I said, like I was a little disappointed last year that they scored a few times at the beginning of the season and then really not for the rest of the season. Like they just kind of dropped. But it looks like they really put their chips on building the car this year. I've heard some disparaging comments from, I think Fernando Alonso said that the car's a complete ripoff from Ferrari. Who cares? Okay, if it works, don't break it. So yeah, I gotta give like Haas huge props there. And I am genuinely happy that McLaren is back. It's nice to see McLaren in the top field again. And I'm worried about these other teams. I really, really hope that this was maybe a fluke on their part, or whatever problems that they'll be able to figure it out. Yeah, and that's about wraps it up. Not as long of a rambly video as I thought it would be, but anyway, I felt obligated to do this. So thank you for listening, and see you on the next one. And yeah, see you on the next one. Bye.